Hello from sunny and getting warmer Arizona. Hey folks, in today's episode I thought I'd answer another question, and in light of the fact that I live in a very hot climate where there's a lot of sun most of the time, I thought it'd be a good idea to talk to you about solar pool covers and the likes. So what do you say we get into it? Okay, so I want to remind you to like and subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already, and also remember to refer this channel to some of your friends who might own pools who are looking to save a buck or two doing their own pools. So again, we're talking about solar covers today and their benefits, pros and cons. So I don't have any examples to show you of my own clients, so I'm going to base this video on my experience in Arizona, in the hot area of Arizona. I live outside of Phoenix. And so I'm going to give you the pros and cons and then give of solar covers, talk about a couple different kinds of them, and then we're going to go into my, I guess, summary or my conclusion on solar covers. Alrighty, first, there are basically two types of solar covers. The first one, I don't recommend at all. They're basically solar discs, and I'll show you a picture of them right here. So this first picture is of the solar rings. They're the most common of the solar rings that you get, or discs, and they're really very impractical. They take a lot to cover your pool surface, and they don't completely give you a complete cover, so you get a lot of heat loss. This second picture is of another type of solar ring, similar, same problems, takes too many, even though they're a little bigger, to cover your pool, and there's a lot of gaps, so you get a lot of heat loss, and that kind of defeats the whole purpose of them. So those are solar discs, and I don't recommend them. In my opinion, and what I've seen and experienced, they're pretty much worthless. Some of you may disagree with that. If they've worked for you, that's great. The second type is the traditional solar cover, and it's basically comes in like wide panels and rolled out lengths, and you have to glue the seams together and then cut it to fit the size of your pool or the design or layout of your pool surface. And they usually, you can get a roller to roll them up. And here's a picture of that type of cover. So this picture is of a typical solar blanket or cover. You'll notice that you can see the seams where each panel is seamed together with the darker blue stripes, and then also the roller reel, which you have to purchase separately usually. Also, you'll notice it's a rectangular pool, which is the best shape to have a solar cover on. Thought I'd show you a close-up view of the dots that make up the solar blanket, so that way you can see kind of what it's about and all that. And those things do eventually wear out and break and start to deteriorate into your pool. Okay, so I'm going to comment on the pros and cons of the roll-up cover, because in my opinion, the solar discs, they just are worthless. They don't really have any value. Maybe if you have a spa, but if you have a spa, get a regular cover for it to keep the heat in. But the solar cover, the solar discs, they just have too many gaps. So they don't really help hold chemicals, they don't really hold heat, and they're just kind of gimmicky, and they're really a pain to take in and out of your pool. So pass on those for sure. So the pros to the solar cover. Number one, they actually do work. As long as you have sun, they actually work. So that's one of the pros. They can heat the water during sunny days, and that can help. And in Arizona, we have a lot of sun, so that really helps. Number two, they do help with keeping the evaporation of your water down slightly, because the surface area of your pool water, where the evaporation occurs, is covered. So it can actually slow down the evaporation a little bit, but that also means that it will slow down the evaporation of chemicals in your pool as well. Now, with that said, it's kind of a two-edged sword on that one, because with the additional heat of your water, obviously the heat is going to create greater evaporation and use up the chemicals faster as well. So, but I've still found that it does help a little bit. So that's the second pro to a pool cover. Number three, The third pro to a pool cover is it can keep some of the debris out of your pool because it covers the surface of your pool. But you also have to make sure that when you roll that cover off, you don't end up dumping all that debris back into your pool. So I want to go back to the first pro really quickly. When it comes to heating your pool, as I said, they actually do help in that. Couple things. Number one, during a sunny day, they only heat the surface, so you have to run your equipment so it can really circulate that warm water down into the lower parts of your pool water. So that will help keep it warmer. The other thing is, it has to be on during the daytime because it's not going to do you any good at night if there's no sun. So keep that in mind. Okay, so those are the pros. Now let's talk about the cons. And I have a few of them, actually quite a few, so we're going to go over them. First and foremost, when it comes to the heating of them, to me, the amount of benefits you get, especially in Arizona, is not very great. I don't think they really benefit heating-wise. Honestly, in Arizona, most of the pools that I know of, unless they have jacuzzis, don't have heaters because we're so hot during the summer. Most people just don't worry about trying to heat their pool. And the heaters and heating a pool out here is pretty expensive, so people just don't want to spend the money on it. So with that said, to me, I think the first con when it comes to the first negative, if you want, when it comes to a solar pool cover, is that it really only extends your swim season, at least in Arizona, by about 2 weeks on either end. So you'll get about 2 weeks at the beginning of the swim season extra, and then about 2 weeks at the end of the season. And remember, I'm talking about for the typical swimmer, not the kids who can jump into polar ice water and have a blast doing that. We're talking about the average swimmer. So you get about 2 weeks on either end. So for the cost, not sure. Okay, so that's one negative. The second negative that I see is that they can actually hinder the movement of your pool vacuum, because when they cover the surface and your pool vacuum hose tends to float around the surface, that kind of makes your pool vacuum have to work a little harder to get around the pool, and sometimes it can actually hinder its movement. So the second negative is that it can affect the efficiency of your pool vacuum. And I also found it can affect the efficiency of a pop-up cleaning system for the same reason. There's no surface movement of the water, and so a lot of the movement of the debris that's being blown up gets restricted and doesn't get to where it needs to go. Also, your skimmer, this will probably be number three, Number three, your skimmer will be rendered fairly ineffective, okay? Because again, you've got the surface covered, and the idea of the skimmer is to suck the surface water and things that float on the surface into the skimmer. So if you have a pool cover, then your skimmer is rendered ineffective. The fourth negative that I've already touched on has to do with the additional heat and the chemicals. Yes, you are going to save chemicals and through evaporation because the cover's on the pool. But with the additional heat, you're still going to have evaporation and you're still going to go through chemicals. So it's kind of a trade-off. So I kind of look at it as a positive and negative at the same time. This next one, number 5, is probably to me the most important because it's a safety issue. When it comes to a solar cover or any cover, unless that cover is anchored firmly all the way around the perimeter of your pool, it does not serve as a protective device for children should they fall into the pool. Okay? Please keep that in mind. Most solar pool covers sit on the surface and are rolled in. Okay, so they're not attached on the sides at all. So what happens is if a child happens to fall on the top of that cover, their weight will push down and push the solar cover down where they're on it, down into the water, and then the water will then collapse that plastic around them. You see the potential results. It can be lethal. A child can drown. They are not able to use their arms and move around to swim. So they end up with a very, very potentially fatal issue because of a solar pool cover. So again, please don't look at a solar pool cover as protection against children drowning. The weight on top of the cover, again, pushes down on the cover. And again, if you want to do a demonstration, take like a big plastic garbage bag and put it in a bucket of water or a tub of water, and then put your fist down into it, and you'll watch the plastic will conform around your hand. Well, imagine that being a child in a pool. Okay, so it is not a safety protective device. Okay, so I've listed the positives or the pros of a pool cover, of solar pool cover, and I've listed the cons or the negatives. And here is my ultimate conclusion for my experience and in Arizona. Given the potential risks for children, given the benefit to negatives or the positive to negatives, I don't necessarily recommend solar covers for my clients in Arizona. Now, it might be different for you. If you live in a different neck of the woods or a different area in the United States or abroad. So think about it, but that's my opinion. I don't have a positive on it, and I cannot recommend them. So gang, there you have it. That's my answer to the questions and comments about solar pool covers. I hope it made sense. I want to remind you again to like and subscribe to this channel and share it with your friends who have their own pools and are looking to save a buck or two. Again, if you have any comments or questions, you can post them in the comments section below, or you can email me directly, and my email address will come right across the bottom of the screen here. KennyPoolSchool@gmail.com. Once again, KennyPoolSchool@gmail.com. Summer is here in Arizona. Kids are starting to get in pools. People are starting to have parties. We just ended the Memorial Day weekend. So may I again remind you to have fun, be safe, and always, always, always watch those kids around water. And I will catch you next time.